My own son left me at a nursing home on my birthday. No warning, no goodbye. Just a cheap bouquet and a lie about lunch. He packed my suitcase without telling me, signed away my name behind my back, and handed me over like I was some fragile package past return. I sat in a beige room that night, staring at the wall, wondering how a child I raised could erase me so cleanly. But exactly 1 week later, something happened. I won the lottery. And no, I didn't call him. I changed my number. Then I changed my will. If he wanted me gone, I made sure I disappeared on my terms. My name is Elaine Whitmore. I'm 66 years old, and if you're watching this, thank you for giving me a moment of your time. Before I share my story, I want to know you are here with me. Just say listening in the comments or let me know where you are. I love hearing how far my story reached. Sometimes even the smallest connection can make a story feel heard. Thank you. And now, here's my story. And if you find any part of this story real heartbreaking or just worth hearing, please hit subscribe. Not for me, but for every mother who's ever been told to sit down, be quiet, and disappear. They deserve to be seen. And today, I speak for them. My name is Elaine Whitmore. I'm 66 years old. And this year, on my birthday, I put on my late husband's favorite tweed coat, baked a pecan pie from scratch, and set out 2 plates on the kitchen table, like I used to when Caspian was still a boy. Outside, the Georgia autumn had settled over the cul-de-sac like a painting, red leaves skittering across the pavement, soft light curling around the porch railing, the kind of day that asked for forgiveness, the kind of day you wanted to remember. I wanted to believe Caspian hadn't forgotten. I wanted to believe that somewhere beneath the slick hair and polished words, my son still remembered how to come home. He rang the bell at 11:32 a.m., just as the pie finished cooling. He was early enough to catch me off guard, late enough to let my doubt rise like steam. "Happy birthday, Mom," he said, holding a supermarket bouquet, pink carnations stiff and scentless. I smiled, ignoring the small ache in my chest. I didn't ask why he hadn't called. I didn't ask why he hadn't brought the grandkids. When he said I made a lunch reservation, I nodded and grabbed my purse, slipping into the shoes that pinched my toes but matched my coat. We drove in silence. The streets blurred past the passenger window like scenes I no longer recognized. I waited for him to turn toward the city, toward the old cafe we used to love. But the car took a different turn off the main road onto a narrow path lined with stone and trimmed hedges. That's when I saw the sign Silver Pines Assisted Living. My heart sank so quickly, it felt like I'd missed a step in my own life. "What is this?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. He cleared his throat, didn't look at me. "Mom, we need to talk. The house. It's not safe anymore. You've left the stove on. You forgot your medication twice last month. I found a place. It's nice. They have activities, other people your age. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. But all I could manage was, you packed my suitcase because there it was already in the trunk zipped and waiting like I'd agreed to leave and just forgot to tell myself. Don't make this harder than it has to be, he said too calmly. You'll adjust. They're expecting us. And just like that, I became a guest in a life I hadn't agreed to live. A woman escorted me inside with 2 bright eyes and a clipboard. I was asked to sign papers. So many papers. Medical waivers. Power of attorney. A line that said, I was showing signs of early memory decline, signed by a doctor I'd never met. It's for your protection, Caspian murmured. I signed them because in that moment, I didn't know how not to. That night, I sat on a firm twin bed in room 8, staring at a beige wall that looked like all the others. No pie, no candles, no pictures of my grandchildren. My name had been typed on a laminated tag and stuck to the door like a room number in a hotel I never booked. I listened to the distant sound of a television playing Wheel of Fortune down the hall and wondered when exactly my son had stopped seeing me as a person. I wasn't angry yet. I wasn't even sad. I was just missing. And I didn't know if anyone noticed I was gone. Silver Pines was new, clean, and soulless. The hallways smelled like lemon disinfectant and boiled chicken. The nurses called me sweetheart and offered me group puzzles I didn't ask for. My name had been erased from every legal document that mattered and replaced with a plastic wristband. Patient 1328. I tried to tell the staff there'd been a mistake, that I wasn't supposed to be here. But the more I spoke, the more they smiled like I was proving their diagnosis true. They wouldn't give me my phone, said it was too much stimulation. My bank account no longer recognized my login. When I called out to Caspian through the front desk, they told me he was unavailable, but that he left instructions not to disturb him with non-emergencies. The home I had poured 30 years into had been listed for sale. The utilities were shut off. My name had vanished from every record like a chalk mark in the rain. My roommate Norma was in her late 70s and barely lucid. She slept most of the day, occasionally waking to mutter about her daughter's wedding or a dog that had died years ago. I didn't mind her silence. She was the only one here not pretending I wasn't real. One afternoon, while digging through the pockets of my tweed coat just to feel something that still belonged to me, I found a crumpled slip of paper, faded, soft at the edges, a Powerball ticket. My heart stuttered. I hadn't thought about it in months. I'd bought it during a weekend trip to Seattle with my oldest friend Mara, the kind of spontaneous thing you do when you're tired of grocery lists and need to feel reckless. We bought tickets, drank red wine from plastic cups, and promised each other we'd use the winnings for something ridiculous. Mara had passed away last spring. Cancer, fast and unfair. I had kept the ticket out of nostalgia, nothing more. I considered tossing it in the trash, but I couldn't. Holding it felt like holding onto her, onto a version of myself that hadn't been erased yet. That night, while Norma snored softly behind me, I slipped out of the room and wandered down the hall to the patient library. Most of the computers were locked. One shoved in the corner wheezed to life when I touched it. I typed in the numbers from the ticket more out of boredom than hope. The screen loaded slowly, and then it hit me. The numbers matched. All of them. I blinked, refreshed the page, read it again. Powerball jackpot, $87 million. My breath caught in my throat. I looked around. No one had followed me. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like they were mocking me. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. What I felt was colder than shock. It was clarity. A dangerous, perfect kind of clarity. The next morning, a young nurse named Rosalia, mid-20s, sharp eyes, Cuban accent, stopped at my bedside to take my vitals. She leaned in close, her voice low. "You're not like the others. I can see that." I stared at her, unsure whether to trust the glimmer in her eye. She continued, "If you want out, you better start soon. They're not going to let you go once they lock you down tighter." How do you know she didn't answer that? She just slipped a sticky note into my hand. It had a username and password. "Computer room. After midnight. That's your window." That night, I waited until the halls were quiet and the shift changed. Slipped past the night nurse with a cough and a smile. Logged in, trembling. Rosalia had created an admin account that bypassed the firewalls. I had access to a browser, a printer, a lifeline. I wasn't ready to tell anyone I'd won, not yet, but I was ready to do something about it. Because if Caspian wanted me gone, I was going to make damn sure I disappeared on my own terms. And this time, no one was signing anything for me. The numbers didn't register at first. I read them on the screen line by line again and again. My hand hovered over the mouse, the plastic still warm from the last patient who'd used it, and for a full minute I forgot how to breathe. $87 million. The jackpot had rolled over for weeks, grown into something monstrous, and now it sat there staring back at me in black letters on a white page. Every digit matched the ticket in my pocket. I didn't cheer. I didn't laugh. I didn't even smile. My fingers trembled as I shut the browser and logged out. There was no joy in that moment, only a cold spike of fear, a fear so sharp it cut through every other thought I had. If Caspian found out, it wouldn't just be my freedom on the line, it would be everything. He'd already taken my house, my records, my signature. If he got wind of this, I'd be lucky if I ever saw daylight again. Back in room 8, I sat on the bed and tucked the ticket deep into the lining of my coat, folding it so tight it nearly tore. Norma snored softly from the other bed, her breath uneven and shallow. I whispered into the dark, not to her, not to anyone, just a promise to myself. This isn't the end. The next morning, I found Rosalia outside the linen closet and pulled her aside. I didn't explain everything. I didn't have to. She saw the look in my eyes and nodded. "You need a lawyer?" she asked. I nodded back. That same afternoon, she returned with a burner phone, wrapped in a latex glove, and handed it to me like contraband. "His name is Reed Callahan," she said. "He helped one of our patients here before someone whose daughter tried to take her house. He's quiet, trustworthy, works pro bono for the right people." That evening, after lights out, I crept back into the library and called. It rang twice before someone picked up. His voice was calm, deliberate. "Elaine, you've got about 5 minutes before this call is flagged. Start talking." I gave him the basics. Where I was, what Caspian had done, the power of attorney, the hidden sale of my house, the bank accounts. And then with my voice barely steady, I told him about the ticket. The blind trust, I said. I want one. I want my name nowhere on it. I want to vanish. He didn't flinch. "We'll move fast," he said. "You'll need new ID, new address, new everything. I'll walk you through it. But first, we get you out of there." The plan was still forming when Caspian showed up. I was in the recreation room when they reeled him in. Hair neatly styled, sleeves rolled just right, that familiar politician's grin painted across his face. He asked to speak to me privately. The staff, of course, obliged. I was still technically under his care. In the visitation room, he looked at me with fake concern. "Mom, I'm sorry." I overreacted. This wasn't supposed to feel like a prison. I said nothing, just studied his face. I've been thinking, he continued, "Maybe we can get you some better accommodations. More freedom. You need to let me manage things until we're sure you're okay. You scared me." I asked him one question. "Where's my house?" He blinked. "What, my house in Seattle? Where is it? Who owns it now?" There was a pause. Then the shift. His smile tightened. "It's complicated. The maintenance costs were, it's been sold, only temporarily, and the bank account's mom." "You erased me." He sat back in the chair. "I did what I had to. You weren't safe. You were slipping." I stood up. "No, Caspian. You needed me gone. That's not the same thing. He didn't follow me when I walked out. He didn't need to. He'd already done what he came to do. Plant doubt, assert control, remind me what I'd lost. But what he didn't know was that in my coat pocket was the one thing he hadn't stolen yet." That night, I opened Norma's notebook and wrote, "If tomorrow is the last day I have control over my own name, I will make sure I'm the one who writes the final sentence." 3 days later, I collapsed in the hallway outside the dining room. At least, that's what the nurses thought. My blood pressure had dipped just enough to trigger a hospital transfer. In truth, Rosalia had slipped me a pill and a wink at breakfast. She rode with me in the ambulance, squeezed my hand once before I was rolled into the ER, then vanished. When I woke up in the hospital's side wing, a man in blue scrubs handed me a plain change of clothes and a coat I didn't recognize. "You have 30 minutes, he said. "There's a car waiting at the north exit. Don't look back." I didn't. The car, a beat-up sedan driven by a quiet man in a baseball cap, took me north along the coast for hours. I didn't speak. Neither did he. We stopped only once at a gas station where I used a prepaid card to buy coffee and a map. Just touching money again felt surreal. By midnight, I arrived at a rental home tucked deep in the woods outside Ashland, Oregon. The house was modest, creaky cold, but it was mine, at least for now. Reed had set everything up. Utilities, mailbox, false name. From that moment on, I was Evelyn Shaw. Each morning I walked through the town with a scarf wrapped high and sunglasses tight. I visited the same corner cafe, bought the same black coffee, smiled at the same cashier who called everyone darlin'. No one asked questions. No one saw anything but an older woman with quiet eyes and a tired posture. That suited me fine. At night, I couldn't sleep. I'd pace the wooden floors of the house like a ghost, one hand on the wall, just to feel something solid. I missed my real name. I missed Mara. I even missed Norma's quiet snoring. But most of all, I missed the certainty of knowing who I was. On the 6th morning, I saw Caspian's face on the cafe television. News ticker: local man seeks missing mother. I just want her safe. His voice trembled. His eyes were glassy. I think someone's taken advantage of her. I'm scared she's confused. If you see her, please call. I watched him read from a folded sheet of paper like it was a speech at a shareholder meeting. I wasn't surprised. He didn't care that I was gone. He was terrified I might come back. Back at the house, I set up a fake Facebook profile and began scrolling through mutual connections. That's when I found a post from an old neighbor. Funny how Caspian suddenly cares when the money disappears. Word is he cleared her trust fund the day after she vanished. I messaged Reed immediately. He confirmed it. Caspian had filed paperwork requesting full control of the remaining accounts, citing urgent financial instability. All of it was legal. All of it was fast. I hadn't even been missing a week. That evening, I found an envelope slipped under my front door. No return address, no stamp. Just one line inside, handwritten in unfamiliar ink: I know you're alive, and I'm not the only one looking for you. I read it 3 times. The handwriting wasn't Caspian's. It was neater, colder, calculated. I checked the locks twice that night, slept with the lights on. I was hiding, but someone else was hunting. I didn't know when the fear had turned into focus, but by the 2nd week in Ashland, I was waking up every morning with one thought: prove it. Prove everything. Prove who I was. Prove what he did. I cleared off the back panel of the kitchen pantry and started taping notes to it like a crime board. Sticky tabs, receipts, handwritten dates, phone numbers. Everything had a color, a column, a connection. I labeled the timeline "The Erasure of Elaine Whitmore." The center was my birthday. From there, the spiderweb spread: power of attorney, house sale, account closures, the forged medical assessments. I went back further, dredging up old tax records I'd kept in cloud storage. Caspian didn't know about photos of mail from the IRS flagged documents with missing signatures. I started making calls, quiet ones, nighttime ones. People who knew me before Caspian got big. I found Michael, an old friend of my husband's, now retired in Arizona. He answered after the 3rd ring, his voice slow with age but sharp. "Elaine, you alive?" he said. I told him I needed information, not condolences. He remembered. 12 years ago, he said Caspian had asked for a favor to co-sign a business loan using my husband's credit history. He said you'd already signed, but something didn't sit right. I should have called you. My pulse hammered. I had never signed anything. That loan, I later confirmed through Reed, had defaulted 4 years ago. The debt had been transferred into my name through a quiet restructure buried in paperwork that had my forged signature on every page. Then came something worse. Through a former secretary at Caspian's first firm, who I tracked down through LinkedIn, I found mention of a dormant corporation Caspian had set up in Nevada. The articles of incorporation listed a man named Rufus W. Whitmore as the sole legal agent. That was my grandfather, dead since 1989. I ran the filing through a registry tool Reed gave me. The address linked back to a warehouse leased under a holding company, the same holding company Caspian had used to absorb the Seattle property. He wasn't just cutting me out. He was laundering money under the name of a dead man. I sent everything to Reed in a single compressed folder: the Nevada filings, the bank statements, the backdated loan. I didn't even have to call. He rang me 12 hours later. "Elaine," he said, voice tight. "I just got off a call with a contact in D.C. Your son, he's on a preliminary watch list at FinCEN. Federal suspicion of elder exploitation and financial abuse." I sat down hard on the floor, knees buckling. He's not just morally bankrupt, Reed said. He's being watched. But it's not enough to nail him yet. That's where you come in. That night, I began recording audio journals on the prepaid phone. I spoke into the mic like I was testifying at a trial that hadn't happened yet. I recounted every detail, every lie, every memory. I'm not hiding anymore, I said into the recorder voice, steady. I'm hunting him back. It started with a letter addressed to Reed, but the envelope had my name stamped in block letters across the front. Inside, a notice from the Chatham County Probate Court. Caspian had filed a motion to declare me legally incapacitated. He claimed I was unstable, erratic, likely manipulated by unknown parties. He submitted as evidence video clips of me calling his office in distress the day he institutionalized me, along with 2 letters, one from a psychiatrist I'd never met, and another from a physician I didn't recognize, both, stating I exhibited behavior consistent with cognitive deterioration. He wanted total legal guardianship, not just over my person, but over any remaining or concealed financial assets, including notably any trusts or funds recently transferred out of known accounts. Reed laid the options out in a quiet voice. You either appear in court with independent psychological clearance, or they rule you incapacitated by default. I chose the former. We arranged a session with Dr. Eli Levine, a seasoned geriatric psychologist and legal expert in competency cases. He flew to Oregon himself. He wore a plain gray suit, asked no small talk, and spent 3 hours with me in the living room recording everything. I told him everything, from the day my husband died to the pecan pie on my birthday. I showed him the pantry wall. I showed him the recordings. I told him how it felt to be erased from your own name. At the end of the evaluation, he closed his notebook and said, You're not just competent. You're dangerous in the best way. I'll make sure the judge knows that. For the first time since this began, I felt seen, not doubted, not pitied, just believed. But it wasn't over. 3 nights later, the Ring camera on my front door pinged me at 2:17 a.m. A black SUV sat idling at the end of the driveway. A tall man in a cap stepped out, tried the side door, then circled the back. The footage wasn't clear, but it didn't need to be. I forwarded everything to Reed. They're rattling the cage, he said. Stay locked down. Don't go to the market alone. That same morning, I finished assembling a dossier thicker than my old wedding album. Inside the fake medical forms, the Nevada corporation the power of attorney forged without my consent, the property transfers, the witness statements, screenshots, audio files. I mailed the whole thing under my real name to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Georgia. I sent digital copies to FinCEN, to the Elder Abuse Division of the DOJ, and to a journalist Reed trusted in Atlanta. I wasn't just defending myself anymore. I was building a case. As the court date neared, I packed a small overnight bag. Just a change of clothes, a folder of documents, and the same lottery ticket that had started it all. I recorded one final entry before I left for Georgia. If tomorrow is the last day I stand on U.S. soil as a free woman, then I will stand tall. I will speak every name out loud, and I will not leave the courtroom until someone finally listens. The courthouse in Chatham County stood gray and unbending against the cold wind of early winter. I arrived early, long before the hearing, wearing a navy wool coat that still smelled faintly of cedar with silver buttons I had polished the night before. My hair was pinned up neatly, no makeup, no adornment. Just clear eyes and a spine stiffened by months of exile. Caspian was already there, flanked by 2 attorneys and a small film crew, cameras clipped to their shoulders, like this was a press junket and not a court proceeding. I sat across the aisle beside Reed. Between us, a leather file box filled to the brim with proof affidavit statements, surveillance stills. All that I had survived was compressed into numbered pages and timestamps. The judge entered. The court was called to order. Caspian's lawyers started. A disjointed playlist of my supposed mental instability filled the room. Voicemails I barely remembered, leaving printed emails I hadn't written, letters allegedly from me, each one darker and more unhinged than the last. They painted a portrait of a woman in decline, vulnerable, paranoid, unfit to manage herself. A psychologist appeared via video call, speaking in clinical tones, speculating that I was possibly being manipulated by unknown external actors. He had never met me. The judge turned to me. "Mrs. Whitmore, you may respond." I stood. My hands didn't shake. "My name is Elaine Whitmore," I said. "I am not senile, I'm not lost. I am here because my son wanted me invisible." I handed over the evaluation from Dr. Levine, confirming I was of sound mind, memory, and reasoning. Then I handed over my second file, financial statements, cross-checked by read logs of my location in Ashland, every wire transfer and banking document notarized. I submitted camera footage from my doorbell showing the stranger attempting to break in days after the motion was filed. But that wasn't all. "Your Honor," I said voice, "even I request to submit one final packet for the court's review. I labeled it contingency. Inside were documents no one expected, forged loan agreements from 12 years ago, bank statements showing illicit withdrawals, scanned pages of signature mismatches, incorporation papers for shell companies in Nevada using the names of deceased relatives. And last, an official fax from FinCEN confirming an open federal investigation into Caspian Whitmore for financial elder abuse and suspected money laundering." Reed stood beside me and addressed the court. "Elaine Whitmore is not only the rightful guardian of her own estate, she's a material witness in an ongoing multi-jurisdictional investigation. The court should treat her not as a defendant in need of protection, but as a victim who has reclaimed her power." Caspian leapt from his seat. "She's lying, she's being used. She doesn't even remember things." I turned. I looked him in the eye for the first time in 6 months. "No, Caspian, I remember everything. You just don't control me anymore." The room fell silent. The judge recessed briefly, then returned with a ruling Elaine Whitmore was of full legal capacity. All motions from the petitioner were denied. The case was referred to federal prosecutors. Outside the courthouse, reporters surged forward, cameras clicking, microphones extended. I said nothing. That night back home, I opened an email from Sarah, the journalist, who had once asked for my story. "If you're ready," she wrote, "the world is listening." 1 month later, Caspian was in federal custody. Charges announced financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, fraudulent impersonation of a deceased person, wire fraud through fictitious charitable entities. The headlines didn't bring joy, but they brought clarity. I agreed to a sit-down interview with Sarah. 15 minutes, no voice modulation, no face blur, no aliases. In the segment that aired nationwide, I told everything. How I was left at a nursing home on my birthday, how I found a lottery ticket tucked into the sleeve of an old cardigan, how I chose to run not out of fear, but out of defiance, how I refused to die quietly. After the interview, messages poured in, hundreds, from grandmothers and daughters, from caregivers, from men who'd watched their own mothers disappear inside legal black holes. People thanked me for saying what they hadn't dared to say, so I did more than speak. I launched the Whitmore Initiative, a nonprofit organization dedicated to investigating and advocating against financial abuse targeting the elderly. We raised our first $100,000 in 2 weeks. I rewrote my will. Caspian's name no longer appeared. Instead, I left my fortune to 3 things: the Whitmore Initiative, a scholarship fund for home care nurses, and personal bequests to Rosalia Reed and Dr. Levine, whose loyalty changed the trajectory of my life. On a spring night in Asheville, I sat alone on the porch of my new home. Lantern lights swayed in the breeze. The trees rustled like pages of a book I was still writing. I opened the tin box, now worn with scratches, and took out the faded lottery ticket. I ran my thumb across the numbers one last time. Then I wrote a letter to myself. "Elaine, your son, thought you'd disappear quietly. But you lived. You lived long enough to take the pen back. I don't need to be called a victim or a warrior. I am a survivor. and I wrote my name, start to finish, with my own hand.